Hello and welcome in this new video tutorial brought to you by Hdesigntutorials.com. In this tutorial, we'll learn together how to remove raindrops from any image. As well, we will discover what are the best tools in Adobe Photoshop that we can use to heal, clean and remove any unwanted objects from an image. Here is the final result that we will achieve step by step in our tutorial. Before we begin cleaning out this photo, it's important that we learn the necessary basic techniques to fully understand what tools to use in what kind of situation, so let's go ahead and explain things a little bit. Before we start, always remember that whenever we want to remove an object from an image, actually what we are doing is healing the background behind that undesired object. Or, in another word, healing or cleaning or removing undesired objects from an image is in fact a restoration and a reconstruction of the background itself. And the more complex the background behind that object you want to remove, the more it's time-consuming and difficult to get the job done. So first, before you start healing an image, don't look at the object itself, but look closely at the background to define what tools and techniques you will be using to remove the unwanted object. In the first example, when the background only contains a solid color, we can easily use the brush tool to remove the object from the background. Let's select the brush tool, then let's adjust the size of the brush and set the hardness to 0. Then make sure the opacity is set to 100%. Then with the brush tool, you should go to the closest area to the object you want to remove, then hold Alt key on the keyboard to switch to the eyedropper tool, then click to pick the color from the background, then release the Alt key and start drawing on the object to remove it as shown. When the background only contains a solid color, the next tool we can use is the Spot Healing Brush tool. We can set the hardness to about 30%. Then make sure the type is set to Content Aware. With the Spot Healing Brush tool, we can simply draw on the object to remove it as shown. The Spot Healing Brush tool also works very well when the background contains organized geometric shapes, patterns, or textures. And as you can see, it can perfectly reconstruct that kind of backgrounds correctly. Let's see other similar examples. The Spot Healing Brush tool also works pretty well when the background contains nested or tangled shapes that doesn't have a straight and clear design that can be critical when caught by eye, like grass, fur, hair, and any other randomized or overlapping objects. Also, there are several situations where the Spot Healing Brush tool doesn't work properly. For example, when the background is blurred or out of focus, the Spot Healing Brush tool doesn't give a good, clean result. So in this case, we can use the Clone Stump tool to manually reconstruct the background. While using the Clone Stamp tool, we should hold Alt key on the keyboard, then click to copy or clone a stamp from another area in the image, then release the Alt key and click repeatedly or draw on the object to remove it, as shown. In another example, let's see what happens if we use the Spot Healing Brush tool to remove the butterfly from a background that contains clear shapes but not organized in a way that the Spot Healing Brush tool can automatically reconstruct. As you can see, the result is not perfect, so we need to work on it manually using the Clone Stump tool. So first, let's keep this result to compare it later. And let's use the Clone Stump tool to manually remove the butterfly. Now, if we compare both results, surely the Clone Stump tool wins the battle in this example. Now, after understanding the basics, let's remove the water drops from our image. Now, since the image contains a human character, it's better to start by healing the background behind our subject. Then after that, we can move on to the dress and the hair and leave the skin and the face of our subject to the last stage of our healing process. Since the background is a solid black color, we can use the brush tool to remove the drops. So let's select the brush tool and let's draw some black to clean the background. When we get closer to the hard edges, we should set the hardness and the opacity of the brush to 100%, and that's to prevent fading the edges by mistake. Also, we can use the spot healing brush tool, which is good in reconstructing solid color backgrounds. We can increase the hardness of the spot healing brush tool to clean near the edges and to increase the pressure and the accuracy of the brush. Now let's move on to the dress, and we can keep working with the spot healing brush tool. Since the dress texture and color is simple, then the spot healing brush tool can help us to work faster and getting good results. Now let's use the Clone Stump tool. Let's, for example, set the hardness to about 22% and set the opacity to 50%. And as shown, we need to tap and hold the Alt key on the keyboard, then click to copy a stamp, then release the Alt key, then start clicking over the water drop to hide it. We should always change the size of the brush depending on the size of the spot we are dealing with. And also, we should always look to the background wisely and try to find the best spot from where we can copy a stamp to patch or reconstruct the corrupted area. It's like if we want to redraw or complete something that has been erased from an image, we need to imagine how it used to look like when it was already there, then find the best piece of puzzle to reconstruct it. While using the Clone Stump tool, note that you can click this icon here to enable the Airbrush Style Build-Up Effects. When the Airbrush Style Build-Up effect is enabled, it gives you a nice and smooth jittering while drawing with the clone stamp tool. That's why I prefer to keep the airbrush build-up effect enabled while using the clone stamp tool. Now let me show you another great technique that I'm usually using to deal with uneven edges. In this example, the edge of the sleeve is not perfectly straight. So, if we copy the lower edge of the sleeve and place it over the upper edge of the sleeve, let's first tap and hold Alt plus Shift keys to hide the brush circles so that we can clearly see what we are doing. As you can see, the copied edge needs to be rotated a little bit so that it gets aligned perfectly with the upper edge of the sleeve. So to fix this, I will create a new layer. Then I will click several times to paste the copied stamp in the new layer. Then I will use the Move tool to position and rotate the stamp correctly as shown. Then we can select the upper layer, then tap Ctrl plus E to blend it with the main image. Now we can switch back to the clone stamp tool to complete our work. Now let's learn how to deal with hard edges like in this example. When the clone stamp tool hardness parameter is set to lower amounts, if we try to remove an object that is near to the edge of something, we will end up fading the edges shown. So to prevent this from happening, we should set the hardness parameter to 100% and set the opacity to 100%. Think carefully. If you control the mouse perfectly, you can come closer to the edge and start clicking to remove the undesired object. But in case you can't control the mouse with high precision, you may end up biting the edges as shown. So there is another solution to deal with hard edges, and it's by using the pen tool to create a precise selection on the edges and around the object you want to remove as shown. Then go to the Paths panel and hold Ctrl key on the keyboard and click the path thumbnail to convert the path into selection. And now we can switch back to the clone stamp tool, and then we can lower the hardness and the opacity like we want. Then hold Alt to copy a stamp, then click to paste the stamps. And now, even if we click or draw over the edges of the hand, only the selected area will be affected. You can tap Ctrl plus D to deselect. To deal with smaller spots or areas in the image, we need to reduce the size of the clone stamp tool and zoom in a little bit. This will make it easier for us to work on tight areas in the image. Now let's take a look at another example. In this example, I'll show you how to deal with round edges or corners and show you how to reconstruct a rounded edge when there is nowhere in the image to copy a similar edge. First, we need to set our clone stamp tool brush size properly, then set the hardness to about 50%, then set the opacity to about 70%. Then we can hold Alt key on the keyboard, then copy a stamp from one of our straight edges here. Then we should create a new layer to paste the stamp. And now we can select the Move tool, Then tap Ctrl plus T on the keyboard to transform the layer, then right-click the stamp, then select Warp. Then we can easily transform the straight edge into a rounded corner edge by moving the warp anchor points as shown, then click this button or hit enter on the keyboard to apply the transforms. And now we can move our transformed layer and position it and rotate it to align it properly as shown. Then we can tap Ctrl plus E on the keyboard to group both layers. And finally, we can select back the Clone Stamp tool to clean out our work a little bit more. The last situation we have here is when you want to remove an object from a background that contains two overlapping objects and you don't have any similar spot in the image to reconstruct the background. And for example, if we copy a stamp from the lollipop or whatever you call it and try to paste it, we'll find out that it doesn't work because of the circular form of the brush. So in this case, we can repeat the pen tool technique to define the area that we want to fill. So now I'll stop talking because I'm tired of talking and let you watch how this can be easily fixed, so watch carefully and you will easily understand and learn how to do this. Finally, this is the final result after deploying the same techniques we've explained in this tutorial, and I think after watching this tutorial, you'll be able now to easily remove anything from your images using the tools and the techniques we've described in this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe.